Hi, I'm Allison Gregory here with Conversations with Your Higher Self, and today we have Erin. Erin, I would like for you to explain to everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do and what you feel your purpose here is.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I am a certified theta healing practitioner and teacher. Um, I was a hairstylist for 17 years. Um, I loved that. I owned my own salon and employed some really fabulous people. That was an amazing experience. And I think my purpose, something that I'm very good at, is making the uncomfortable seem normal, like normalizing the uncomfortable.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I personally love about your journey, and let's first start with your awakening journey. When did that start to happen for you? When did things start cracking open?
I feel like probably a lot of my motivation early on was from aggravation. so
I hear you.
so so probably somewhere in my early 30s, I feel like I had achieved kind of what I wanted to do, like these long-term goals in a very short period of time, and I really wasn't that happy with my life in a lot of different aspects. I just had one of those moments where I was like, I guess where I thought things were supposed to be different, um, and and I think that really kind of compelled me into waking up.
Was there
Yeah.
any specific moments that you recall that were just like slapped you upside the head?
Yeah, I mean, I can really remember like having this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I really don't like how my life is going, and I really don't like anything in it. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like I am so hard on people about being responsible, for the way they act and the way they go about their life.
Yeah, been there.
And although I think I definitely would have still been called responsible from a lot of my peers at the time, I was like, oh my goodness, like there's a whole lot of responsibility and accountability that I could have for myself right now. So that one, yeah, that was a slap.
Well, that's huge, awareness on your part. I feel like so many people go through their life and don't even have that kind of awareness come in. What brought that in for you?
um, I was just really discontent, honestly. Like I was just really unhappy. And I'm very good at being happy, and I'm really good at being enthusiastic about life. And so I think the weight of the unhappiness or the dissatisfaction was enough to uh, overcome the inconvenience of the realization, right? Like, so it was like, the motivation was strong enough to take the slap.
It's kind of funny that when that comes in, it's like, okay, I can ignore it and push it aside, but you really can't because it'll just keep getting bigger and louder and pushier. Did you
It's
find that happening to you?
Yeah, I think that I had probably waited. I mean, not knowingly, I really wasn't conscious at the time. So I definitely felt like I kind of woke up and I was like, wow, like I got a couple things that are kind of really messy. And yeah, I mean, this is my early 30s. I'm 43 now. And I was telling a friend the other day, one of the ways that I really love to express myself, it's just fast, is to cry. You know, if I'm trying to work something out and tears seem to come to me, like I just cry. And I was telling them, I'll do it on a walk with my dog now because I just don't want to wait. I don't want to wait anymore. I feel like I had enough of that. I've had enough of the waiting. So
Well, and that's
yeah.
part of the beauty of the human experience, I think, is feeling the feelings. We've been so conditioned to tamp it down and don't feel it, push it aside. It's so cathartic and cleansing when you just let it go.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is, and it is. It's a gift to feel those feelings. It's a
Really
gift.
is.
It's a true gift. Yes. Yeah. So Yeah. And I think the other part is becoming very good at uh cultivating, I think is a word that a lot of people use. I think just a practice for me of having more forgiveness for myself, and um and self-care, all those things that make up self-love. And that makes it a lot easier for me in any moment to say like, okay, what's the situation, and how am I a part of it? So without the judgment, without the guilt, without the regrets, without that stuff, it's a lot easier to do. So yeah, and then it really is a gift to just feel those feelings and move through it. Yeah.
Well, I was privileged to witness one of your big aha moments in life when
Yeah.
we were on a weekend in Destin on a retreat, and you were introduced to theta healing. How did that transform you?
Um, well, I mean, first of all, I just think it's like so amazing because you were supposed to take somebody else, and that didn't happen. So
Yeah, it was meant to
I was
be
like,
you.
I don't know, maybe. But then I just kind of checked in and I was like, yep, okay, I'm going. And I was there for a couple days and I was like, okay, this isn't this, it felt very familiar, like stuff that I had worked on. So it was not like, it was good. And I was like, gosh, this is not what I expected. I really thought there was going to be this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I got it, right? And then yeah, and then I think her name's Bridget, right?
Yeah.
Bridget comes in. She's a like friend. She's a friend of the host. She wasn't even part of the retreat, and she came in, and the word theta healer was mentioned, and I was like, what? And I just didn't. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea, and I had no like experience or like association with healing or like healers at the time. Um, but it was so compelling, and so it was amazing. She was nice enough to give me a session, and I had my aha moment. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I do when I meditate, except when I meditate it takes me way longer. And
Yeah.
so I was like, wow, this is a whole world. This is my practice that I've just kind of found through yoga and meditation, is something that somebody else has channeled, written down, has books on, classes, a whole language in. I just like, this is it. Definitely, it did change my life for sure. Yeah.
What do you feel was the most life altering thing that came out of the whole process of going through theta healing
Mm.
classes and then now being an instructor in it?
I think like the biggest change in my life, I mean, other than like, having, more happiness about myself and feeling so good about myself. But the biggest change in my life was for with my relationships and my family. That was the biggest, I think biggest because it's the most important to me. And so theta healing helped me sort through for me, the mess of my family dynamics and relationships. Um, so yeah, I mean that has profoundly changed my life and my whole family's life.
You, to me, are like the superhero poster child for healing family trauma. I mean, really, the shit. And having gone to Erin for my hair for years until she moved on past that. Um, gosh, it was probably over 10, 12 years maybe we were together
Yeah.
intimately every couple months. And the transformation that took place that you shared with me is just, it's awe-inspiring. Can you
Uh,
share some of that with the people in the audience, kind of like, where things started, how you started dissecting the family dynamics and how you got to a place of healing? Because I think so many people are looking for that.
yeah, I do. I think you're right. I think a lot of people are looking for it. Um, I think that's really evident just in the conversations around family trauma that I love, that are so common now. So that's awesome. So Okay, so I would say that it definitely started with my own interest in self-healing, which kind of started from that moment of being like really unhappy in my life and deciding that I was going to be really responsible for everything I created. Um, and what unfolded was my ability to be able to see my I have a mom, a sister, and a dad. Those are really that's really my family, and so it helps me see my relationships and it helped me see them in a whole new way. And I had an especially strained relationship with my father, and I mean, it was interesting because I had this sense that I was loved, but I couldn't feel it. I could never feel it, my perception was that I just had absolutely no value in my family. Um, and I would say, like, after going through all the healing, like, that wasn't untrue. Um, and so, working on myself led me to really kind of get to this place where I was healthy enough that I could see so much of myself in my father. Um, and I wanted him to have it for himself too. I really understood that he had I understood a little bit that he had a really terrible childhood. Um, and not just terrible, I don't think anybody has a just terrible, but it was it was bad. It was really bad. And although, we had, physical altercations, there was physical abuse. Um, he was just so angry, like I could see where it came from. And yeah, and so I just decided that I was gonna make sure that he had an available it was available to him. So and it got messy.
Yeah, you were very cathartic in the process, though. Your patience that you showed was,
Yeah.
I don't know how you did it.
This has been, I mean, I think, kind of waking up, so to speak, that first time in my early 30s was probably like, I don't know, gosh, 10, 11 years ago. I feel like this all really started probably like 8, 9 years ago. So it has taken 8 to 9 years. You're right. I think there is a whole lot of patience, um, and believing in that time, because there were 2 years that my dad didn't talk to me at all, and that my sister and my mom, you know, would talk to me a little bit, but it was also strange, And so I think in that moment, I think a lot of people, I think anybody would have been like, forget it. Like, I've tried so hard and now they just don't want to talk to me. Um, but I think the thing is that you got to walk through it. Like it does. It gets it's patience. There's patience.
It's patience, and I also witnessed you setting the example. It
Mm,
wasn't like, um,
yeah.
I'm going to come in and tell you all how things should be, how we need to operate now, and blah, blah, blah. It was just like, I'm going to change and clean up my shit.
Yes.
And you're all going to
Yes.
watch that and witness that unfold. And then
Ah,
the mirror's going to, like, boom,
yes.
be
And
right
then
there.
hopefully you'll see, right? Yeah, man, that was hard. That was so hard sometimes too, because oh man, I could feel those I would go to like a family gathering and I'd have a conversation on the way, right? I'd drive to the family gathering and have a conversation on the way with like a friend, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going in, I'm putting on like safety gear, like I'm going in for an experiment. I'm putting on my lab coat, I'm putting on my safety goggles, like I am going in and I'm going to see how this goes, and I'm going to make sure that I'm also safe, right? And so I would set up this context, like, so that I wouldn't go in like, I'm going to change the way you think, or I'm going to be this amazing example. I was like, I'm just going to experiment and see, like, is this even possible? And then, man, I would be there and a lot of the times I would just be quiet. I just wouldn't say anything because I get so triggered. And then I have to sit there and be like, okay, so what's happening right now? Like, all right. And I could start to see the family dynamics that I'd never seen before. Right. Um, yeah. And so it took a lot of restraint for sure. And a lot
Oh,
of
wow.
responsibility for my own emotions. I think that's something I'm strong with anyways, like being restrained in my emotions. But yeah, it took it took
See, because
something.
I would be triggered probably. I would have the intent of going in to just with my lab coat and safety goggles, and then I'd get in there and be like, ah! How did you do that?
To keep my mouth shut. Honestly, like
Yeah.
keep keep quiet, because like as soon, I think, in those moments, if you open your mouth and you're feeling such strong feelings, like your nervous system is literally just reacting in the same way it always has. So even if you've kind of rewired some of your brain and you're starting to think differently, your nervous system still acts the same way. So if I were to open my mouth, I knew that I would say the wrong thing, or whatever I said wouldn't come out the right way. So I also kept them short. I kept those visits super short, because my other goal was to make sure that that I didn't participate in re-traumatizing or perpetuating the trauma or the family dynamics that I didn't appreciate. So I was committed to going in there as like being as loving as I possibly could, like open and understanding, accepting, really accepting. Yeah. So yeah, I think it is really easy. It's really easy to like stumble, and that's okay too. That's okay too.
Yeah, you just, you can't beat yourself up. You just got to try again next time.
Yeah, you learn from it and then you do it. Yes. Yeah. Because even when I didn't say anything, I was learning. I was really learning, because I could hear the things I was saying in my head. And although I wasn't saying them out loud, a lot of them were not good or nice, right? They weren't good for me. They weren't helping me. They weren't nice. They weren't kind. And I was like, okay, like these are things that I need to address. These are things that I need to understand, like why this is happening, where these are coming from, and how I can really understand this whole situation in a different way that I can react differently.
Mm.
So, yeah, whether you say it or you don't say it, you're still kind of saying it, right? Like it's still there.
So when you get towards the end of these 8 or 9 years of just working and working on healing this
Ah!
family dynamic, you've now
Yes,
gotten to a place with your dad that is
yeah,
beautiful.
it is.
What's some of the beautiful conversations that have come out of that healing?
Okay, well, I'll just go with the most recent, because there in the past, I would say year, there are so many amazing things that have just, I think, beyond even what I could imagine. I would say this first. What has transpired between my dad and I is nothing short of a miracle. We were going to always be stuck in the abusive father to daughter dynamic. And even if I was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm going to love you and keep myself safe, I thought, gosh, he could just stay in this angry state forever. But so that has changed, and one of the most beautiful moments recently has been my dad sharing with me that he has this like uh awareness, right? Something that he also understands, that he shut down. Like he could give me the moment that like the time frame that he kind of turned it off. And he was telling me he went to this grocery store and he could feel something was off. And he was like, and I realized that it was like a group conscious thing. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And has no like, I don't know. I mean, no classes that I know of. Just, I'm sure he does those research, but I'm like, wow. And then he's like, I figured out where it was coming from. And I just thought, for somebody, for my dad who had kind of shut all of that down, that's such a profound moment. And to share that with me, and then to be willing to talk about that time frame that he really decided that he wasn't going to do that anymore, which was a time for my family that changed everything. It changed everything. It was a moment where we experienced a family trauma, and it changed everything, and not for the better.
Mm.
And so his willingness to talk about that with me, my experience of that time and his experience of that time like amazing. I just don't know that these kinds of conversations, this kind of deep understanding and love really ever happens after so much trauma has, kind of happened. So,
Don't you think perhaps part of that is from the theta healing process? I mean, talk a little bit about how parts
mm,
of theta healing go into healing generations and ancestral wounds.
yeah, I do. Yeah, definitely. I think, theta healing, like I was saying, it expanded like a process that I had started, and I started to learn about, something that I have been really interested in, which was epigenetics. And although that is not the language that theta healing uses, there is very much a focus on healing in generational, like generational aspects. So, the philosophy in that specific area is that whatever you heal uh, extends down to your lineage, right? So whatever I'm working on, whatever I heal, whatever belief I have that I am shifting, would impact my family members in front of me and the ones behind me. And so I was like, this just sounds right. Like this science background I have, right? And appreciation, like epigenetics is a thing. Like this is a thing. Like I'm changing my DNA, and I didn't really understand what the implications of that were. I just did it. I just did it. And there were moments, where it was like, I knew, that I was working on stuff that had been passed down from my dad and his parents, and back through his lineage. I just knew, and I would have these sessions with practitioners that would ask me, where is this coming from? And so it helped me identify, which I think is really important. I could really appreciate in that what came from him and his side of the family. I remembered that. And it helped me build a whole lot of compassion for him. And I don't, it's, I even say to him, I'm like, I don't know how this works, Dad. I just know that it works, right? Like, uh, whatever I work on impacts him,
We get so wrapped up in the how or
how
the why, it's just like, who cares? It works.
it works. It works. And I mean, so I've been studying theta healing for about 4 years now, and maybe a little over 4 years. And I mean, I think what I really needed was the evidence, right? Like I did hair for a lot of that time. But it's very important for me to have my own experience in order to be able to help facilitate other people's healings or learning, right? Like I have to really understand it, and I have to have the evidence. And man, it's like I will work on something and then my dad will text me about the same damn thing. And I'm like, what is happening?
Wow. Wow.
And I think probably the people, my friends around me are like, just another one. And I'm like, but I just like, it floors me every time. I'm like, can you believe this?
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah. So I'll share one of those experiences with you, which is I think is very cool thing is I went for an acupuncture session and I had all my needles in. My practitioner left the room and I was lying there, and I immediately had this sense that my dad's father was there. And I'm not a particularly visual person. Like I don't see like an apparition, but I could feel it. I had worked with him many times before, and I was like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And he was insistent that I get my dad to kind of talk to him. He wanted a message sent to my dad, and I was like, my dad never ever had talked to me about his dad. It was like the off limits. Like that was the thing that we were not going to talk about. Like at the time, right? And so I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna be the one that does that. Like, come on. And I was like, all right, fine. I will ask him. I will ask my dad for you, because I've really learned to kind of just honor that intuition, right? Those messages. So I'm like, fine, I'll ask. But then I was like, what can I do for you? Because I'm in my acupuncture session. and like you're here. So
Yeah. Are you paying for this? I mean, come
I
on.
thought I was gonna have something else, but you're here, so I know, right? Paying for this. So he's like, oh, I'm sad because I never had a funeral and nobody had a memorial for me. Nobody celebrated my life. And I thought, yeah, that is sad. I think anybody who chooses to come here, anybody who chooses to live is brave and courageous. And absolutely, even if they didn't do a good job, in our opinion, absolutely deserves to be honored for coming and doing. This is hard.
Yeah,
Living is
it
hard.
is.
So I was like, all right, man, let's do this thing. What do you want there? Right. And there were some very strange requests. I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, I feel like we can have anything we want. We're in this space of like, we're not on earth. Like we can have whatever we want. So anyways, it was really beautiful. And at the end, I just saw this like synergy of energy running between me and my dad and my grandfather, right?
Mm.
Like for the first time, I really felt like, oh, he's like related to me. And so I got out and I texted my friend. I was like, what? Can you like help me understand what happened here? It's always good to like text a trusted friend about, like experiences that you can't really explain. I'm like, should I be getting something else out of this? Like this whole synergy thing. And it was interesting because I would normally call her, but I text her. And so my dad, a couple hours later, texted me and he was like, so, my dad, my father, the guy that we never talk about. Yeah, well, my brother came over and was asking about where my dad was buried.
And you had said nothing at this point.
Nothing. I said nothing. Oh, I wasn't, and I was maybe gonna say like, hey, do you want to maybe talk to your dad? Like, think about that, because he talks to his mom in the spirit realms. But I was never gonna tell him about having a funeral for him. So, and here he is like texting me not only about his dad, but specifically about like where he was buried. And then come to find out he did not have a memorial. He did not have any kind of funeral. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is wild. Like,
you can't make this shit up.
What the heck, man? Right? So I just kind of sent him this text that I had sent to my friend, and I was like, I didn't really think that I was going to share this with you, but I think that you need to see this. And I think that you really need to understand that this is happening, right? Here's kind of like my proof. And that just opened up like a whole nother area of healing for me and my dad. And it was, it just like, it just seems to be like, after, let's say like 7 or 8 years of modeling and being responsible and loving and accepting my family, like it seems to have gotten to this point where we're like, things just kind of flowing. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So for people that don't know or understand theta healing, is there a little brief synopsis you can give on what it is, and then talk about how it goes back so far in generations, and then it kicks over into ancestors?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So theta healing is a meditative technique. And in that meditative state, this is something you can do for yourself. If you read the book, you can go to a class. This is also something you can do with a practitioner. And so in this meditative state, you're, I would say, examining and looking for belief systems, memories, feelings that would help you change something in your life or shift something in your life, right? So you might come in and say like, hey, like I really hate my dad. Or you could come in and say like, hey, I really want to have a new job. It could literally be anything. And so in this, it's very peaceful. And so you're connecting with a power that is higher than yourself. And the language around that is totally up to the person who is practicing or is in a session. So it's inclusive of all belief systems. And so in this meditative state, we might check to see like where is the origin of whatever your belief is, right? Like maybe you have something like I'm not worthy of my father's love, right? Maybe you have something like that. So there's a process to discover what the belief is, and then there's a process to see like where the origin of that is. Like that could be your own experience, that could be 7 generations back, and if it's back further than 7 generations, it's considered ancestral, right? Like, and then there's things that we hold like on a soul level, like this, all of our experiences, right, that we've ever had. And so in theta healing, you're looking for the origins of those things, right? So specifically with, that 7 generations and those ancestors, right, that history, there's a whole lot you can do for your family, right? You change those things. To me, I can have conversations with ancestors that I've never met, and get verification from family members about their names, right? Which is cool. Super cool, right? And you can to me, it's like I love it because I can have a conversation with an ancestor, somebody else's ancestor. We can learn a whole lot, and we can appreciate their experience, and we can shift it to a new understanding that serves us better in this time. And so to me, it's this true honoring of your ancestors and your family that came before you, in a way that you can acknowledge that, they had their own stuff they were dealing with, right? Like they had their own hardships. And yes, maybe they did things that you don't appreciate, and they left you with beliefs that aren't really helping you anymore. They came from some place that was really amazing. And so we can start to understand, what those stories are, and we can appreciate who those people are for us. And then we can take all those things that they learned, right? So they might have this belief that they're, I'm not worthy of my father's love, but maybe that was to keep themselves protected. Maybe that was, maybe they learned how to be really strong and independent, right? So we can take those values, those characteristics, and we can say like, yes, please, we will have these. We don't need to have this belief anymore. We can believe that we are worthy of a father's love, and we can have these values, these characteristics, these virtues, right? And we can carry them forward, and we can learn them in a whole new way.
And you think about that just looking at a family tree and the web that's created that comes off. And then if you go through and heal all that from way back, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I think
that's a lot.
It is a lot. I think it is a lot. I think it can sound like a lot. I think this is the way I think about it in practical terms. Like the only thing that you need to work on right now for anybody is whatever is impacting you in a way that you don't appreciate anymore. That's it. You don't have to do your whole family right now, or in 6 days, or in 9 years. Like you don't have to do that. The only thing you really need to work on are the things that are coming up for you in the moment. That's it. Which is part of the reason I also love theta healing, is because it's something that I can do at home. It's efficient, right? To me, it's like quick. Like I can be feeling like kind of off, and I can sit down, I can do my meditation process, which is so easy, right? It just like it is spelled out for you, right? It is a way to go into a theta brain state without having to understand how to do that, right? And I can go into this state, and I can really understand what's happening, and I can shift it and have it cleared up in a moment, right? And then the next thing that comes up, then I do it again. And to me, that's like, I don't know, it's like, it's not, I don't have to sit in the suffering, the torture of feeling like, upset or slightly off or sad. Like I can just get in there and understand what it is, express it, appreciate it, learn from it, and then understand how to move forward in a way that I like better.
So if somebody were to come to you for a session, what if they just felt off, and they've been feeling off for quite a while, and they have no clue where it's coming from? How would you attack that and get into the cause?
Well, I wouldn't attack it. That's for sure. I use my intuition. I think to me, theta healing, if you summed it up in another way, it's a meditative process to build a super good intuition. So I think intuition is something that we all have, every single one of us. We all came in with it. And I think any one person's interest in developing that would be specific to them. So if a person came in, they were like, I just feel off, I would just intuitively, I would intuitively ask. I would go up into that meditative state. I would ask, for me, what I call creator, um, what, like what's happening for this person? And I would listen.
Mm,
I would, to me, intuition is like gathering the information that's out there. It's not what I think about. It's not my opinion. It's not me like, oh, I got to fix this person. They're off. It's like, I just ask, like, what's going on? What's going on for this person? Like, what would really help them right now to understand? And it works.
without, oh, I'm sorry,
No, it just works. It works. It's amazing.
without naming any names. Have you done a session with somebody? What kind of awesome things have come out of it that you were just like even a little bit blown away that you were able to pick up on it?
Um, Gosh, look, I think the first thing that comes to mind is being in a session and learning at the same time. I think is super cool for me as a practitioner. Um, I've said for many, many years, like I don't have time to learn everything in this lifetime. So from my own experience, right? So if somebody comes in, they've had this experience, it comes up in a session, it's like, ooh, I can get to learn from this too. Right.
It's
So
beautiful.
that's super cool. I think, you know, to me, the thing that I really appreciate is like over time, the impacts and the implications of theta healing and energy work, right? Is
Mm.
um, is hearing people's story about how their life has radically changed for the better over time. I think probably because I am that kind of person that is willing and loves to see the results of 9 or 10 years of work. I also really appreciate working with people for a long period of time, and kind of just seeing like what shifts, and that honestly, that period of time could be like months or a year. It's just cool. It's very cool. So,
And I feel like it has an ongoing effect. Your teacher and my teacher as well. I took Theta 1 and 2. Aaron's done the whole shebang and is now teaching. But Pam, our teacher, did
mhm.
a session with me after you had your amazing session. And she right away went to the maternal side, started dissecting things on that. And I'm like blown away
Look
at
at
how
us, lady
she
does.
knew any of that, went into it, picked it all out, did her beautiful stuff that she did. And that was like the first night I went home and I slept that whole night without waking up. And I hadn't done that in years. And
Yeah.
since then, I've been having, my mother's passed for quite some time. I'm doing work with her in the dream state and sometime even in the physical, just with that knowing, so that it's
Like
such a
a
beautiful
catalyst.
practice that it can have those ongoing effects once you open that door.
Yeah, I think so too. I do. I do think it's a true catalyzer. I really do. I think that's probably, I think it is uh um hmm, profoundly impactful and in the way that you're saying. Like you do one session and I think it really opens up a whole bunch.
It does. Now let's talk a little bit about any classes you have coming up, where people can find you, what kinds of things you can work with them on.
Yeah, I am doing my first online class for basic theta healing. That will be on February 11th through 13th. It's like a evening weekend class. I have not picked any other dates yet, but I will be doing more classes. You can book sessions with me. one-on-one sessions. You can find me. Gosh, you could find me. We could probably put a link below if we
Yeah,
want
we'll
to.
definitely do that.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. I have a link tree, so I've made it pretty simple to contact me and if you want more information or if you want to book any of those.
All right. Well, we'll definitely put the information below. Any final thoughts that you could share with people that are going through trying to heal family trauma or afraid to even attack it?
Mm,
Because I think just the fact that it's there, but what do I do is kind of daunting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess I would say if you're aware of it and you have a desire to shift that, to focus on yourself. That would be where I would say to start is really, and I would say always come from there. I never worked on my family. I still don't work on my family. That doesn't work.
No.
So I think, to just focus on yourself, your own understanding of yourself, your own uncovering of yourself, your own healing. And if you want to do theta healing, or if there is another form of work, another healing modality that helps you address generational and ancestral traumas and experiences, that would be the way to go for sure.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today, my dear.
Yeah,
It was
thanks.
wonderful to have you share this beautiful experience with everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right. Well, you can stay on after I stop here, and we will say goodbye to Erin and look for her information below. Like and subscribe if you find this beneficial. Thank you. Bye-bye.